We got a few departments to get through this morning, and we're going to start with the Attorney General. Appreciate you guys being here. Whenever you're ready, go ahead, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to present the budget. We have no NDIs from the AGO, but we do support the Govs Rec that includes statewide team member increase and a substantial line item for our anti-human trafficking effort that we will have inherited when the legislative task force sunset on December 31st. I want to highlight a couple things. Number one, consumer protection last year, we brought in more than $32 million in settlement judgments showing success on the consumer protection side. We restructured our criminal division to include the criminal justice division, repurposed our Safer Street initiative attorneys and staff. That's resulted in a 133% increase in requests for my office to assist with trial court level prosecution. So effective deployment of resources in the fight against violent crime. Medicaid fraud compliance, more than $8 million brought in through civil suits that have been awarded to the state. We've obtained more than 54 criminal indictments and 20 convictions, total restitution more than $2 million. We've also our recruitment and retention efforts have proven successful. We've reduced our vacancy rate to 8%, which is one of the lowest averages across any state agency. We've also reduced our turnover rate by almost 10%, showing effective use of our recruitment and retention resources. With that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief of Staff Rhonda Meyer.
Thank you, General. Any questions from the committee done appearing? Rhonda, whenever you're ready.
Okay. If you'll turn to page 21, this is our core operating budget. This mirrors where we were last year, and the governor's rec takes our request straight across. Would you like me to go through each number, or? Okay.
No, I think you're good.
Okay. If you go to page 32, that's the governor's pay plan for our core operating budget. Page 36 is the anti-child exploitation and anti-human trafficking education budget. That was $900,000 put into the governor's rec. Page 43, is our Medicaid fraud control unit budget. Again, same core as last year, a total of $3.3 million. Page 54 is our domestic violence core budget. This is the budget that we do the Safe Kit initiative. Page 60 is the governor's pay plan to go along with that. Page 64 is our violent crimes task force core budget for a total of $989,307. Also, our same core as last year. Page 70 is the governor's pay plan for that core. Page 74 is the Attorney General Trust Fund for $4 million. This is a pass-through account as we receive monies that go out to school districts, etc. And page 79, 83, and 87 are the transfers from GR to our antitrust fund, our court cost fund, and the anti-child exploitation and training and education fund. And that is our budget.
Rhonda, I appreciate that. Any questions for our Attorney General or Rhonda on their budget requests as presented? Does not appear so. I'll take just 1 second and say I appreciate the work that your office has been doing. I know you mentioned, very briefly the increase in requests that you've had from other prosecutors around the state, and the fact that you've been able to handle that and adjudicate those cases the way you have is a testament to the work that you and your team are doing. So I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Any questions? Doesn't appear so. Thank you,
Thank you.
General. No, we started at 8:30, which was what the hearing was noticed up for. I believe the clocks all showed 8:30 when this committee started its hearing with the Attorney General, Andrew Bailey. Next up, Mr. Moore. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Darrell Moore, Missouri Office of Prosecution Services. I'll be very brief, but I'd also like to highlight a couple things. As the Attorney General said, he's had tremendous demand for need for assistance from prosecutors. We work closely with him. In fact, we have an agreement with him to make sure he's not overburdened, where we make sure that prosecutors come to us first when they need assistance or help, and then we look at it. If it is a Class C felony or lower, we try to assign it to another prosecutor. We make sure the Attorney General is only focused on the murders, the Class A felonies, the serious felonies, and we've worked well together, and as he's pointed out, we've had tremendous demand. Part of that is because we're still having a heck of a time keeping and retaining assistant prosecutors across the state. In terms of our budget, our core budget, we did not ask for an increase. In fact, our budget is $890,000 less than it was last year, and that's primarily because of the one-time funding you gave us and we appreciate that tremendously. As you'll recall, last year we asked for funding to put in a digital evidence management system so that prosecutors could better handle from law enforcement all the digital evidence we're getting. You know, the convenience store cams, the Ring doorbells, and everything. And we asked for $890,000. You gave that. I'm pleased to report we only spent $760,000 of that, so $130,000 of general revenue will revert back to the fund. And I will remind you, when I came and pled for that money last year, or pleaded, I guess, for that money last year, when we went to the private sector, companies were quoting us anywhere from $2 to $3 million to do such a system. And so we're very pleased that our vendor could do it in a good manner. We've also been busy, as you know, when the last circuit attorney resigned last May, and Mr. Gore was appointed circuit attorney. He asked us to come in and help. I provided him 3 attorneys and a grant advocate. The grant program in the city of St. Louis was a mess. They were in danger of losing their grants, and my grant expert went over and tried to help them restore that. Then my 3 attorneys also went and provided guidance. In fact, we continue to provide help to Mr. Gore through last month, and he's doing a great job, by the way. A tremendous job. The people of the city of St. Louis are very lucky to have Mr. Gore as their circuit attorney, and we continue to work with him. In terms of our budget, well, I want to mention one other thing, because I know that you deal with it peripherally, not directly with my office, but it's the VOCA funding for victim advocates. We continue to work with the federal. I was in Washington 3 weeks ago talking to our delegation. We've got to have the feds fix the VOCA funding. In the meantime, we need your continued help to provide funding to meet the gap until we get the feds. My office handles a grant that puts 74 victim advocates, well, in 74 counties across the state that could not afford to have one. Those people would not have victim services if we did not provide those advocates. As you know, the VOCA funding is not good. We appreciate the fact that you appropriated funds to close the gap last year. We hope you close the gap this year. And like I said, I was in Washington 2 weeks ago talking to our delegation, and they understand it. You know, Ann Wagner and Jason Smith, who's the budget chair in the House, understand it, and they're trying to get it fixed. Hopefully we get it fixed. There's a short-term fix. Now, I know the chairman would like for me to shut up in a minute, so we'll look at my budget and say, I can say that because we know each other, and he can say things to me, and I hope I can say things to him. Anyway, if you look at our core budget, like I say, it's the same as it was last year, except it's $890,000 less. We had no new decision item. The only new decision item was the governor's decision item, which we, of course, support. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any questions from the committee on the relationship between the chairman and my former Greene County prosecutor, Darrell Moore? Does not appear so. Appreciate the presentation. Next up, we've got DNR. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Drew Bunton. I'm the Director of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. I'm pleased to be here with you today to present DNR's governor-recommended budget. Joining me is DNR's Deputy Director, Hannah Humphrey, and TJ Graven, our legislative liaison, and I will introduce our respective division directors as they present their portions of the budget. We have also 2 administratively attached entities, the Environmental Improvement and Energy Resources Authority and the Petroleum Storage Tank Insurance Fund, and these budgets will also be presented today. The department's budget includes a number of new decision items which the divisions will address in their respective testimonies. We would be happy to present the NDIs or present the entire budget, whichever is your preference.
I would say let's go through the NDIs, and then obviously as we're working through this, if committee members have questions on the ongoing expenses, we'll deal
Certainly.
with that too.
Well, I did want to say that some of our core budget forms are organized a bit differently this year based on preparations to integrate into the new statewide budget and accounting system known as MOVERS. Most of these changes are in the Missouri Geological Survey and the Division of State Parks. The budget for DNR's operation operations begins on page 1. Our core budget is approximately 5.6 million and 70.13 FTE. The department did receive general revenue funding for FY23 and 24 budgets, partially to support the statewide pay plans effective March 1st, 22 and March 1st, 23. That funding did not have FTE associated with it. So to appropriately reflect the FTE accrual with the adjusted salary, the department is requesting to shift FTE authority from federal and other funds to general revenue through core reductions in various operating core budgets and a corresponding new decision item near the end of our book. The FY25 budget request includes 4.58 FTE reduction from federal and other with a corresponding increase of 4.58 FTE and a new decision item from general revenue in the agency-wide section of our budget. I'll now introduce Kira Moore, who will present the budget for our division of, or the NDIs for our Division of Environmental Quality.
Good morning. My name is Kira Moore, Director of the Division of Environmental Quality. The division has 6 new decision items, and the first new decision item is on page 71 for our Financial Assistance Center water projects. The recommended budget includes a new decision item for $99,504 to assist with the oversight of the 12 multi-year direct appropriated projects related to drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, levee, bridge, and nursing facility sewer improvements. The project portion was moved to House Bill 17 in the amount of $82.4 million. On page 119 is the Water Protection Program Fertilizer Transition Permit Rider new decision item. The recommended budget includes $75,340 in general revenue funds to oversee activities that are no longer covered by the fertilizer exemption. This includes review and issuance of new or amended permits to entities that utilize 150 previously exempted materials.
Is this where we want to do a quick update on our good friends with Denali?
We can certainly do that, Mr. Chairman. As you are well aware and we have discussed, we have had a number of Clean Water Act violations. This and some of the other entities that Kira mentioned had previously utilized a provision of our rules for an exemption if they are subject to permits by the Fertilizer Control Board. The Fertilizer Control Board withdrew those exemptions or withdrew those permits, and so they became subject to DNR regulation as of July 1st of this past year. And so we continued to see violations and ultimately withdrew the enforcement discretion that allowed that entity to continue to operate. They have 3 waste lagoons that they receive, essentially materials from food processing facilities, processing plants and the like. And we had allowed them, since they were no longer subject to the Fertilizer Control Board permits and therefore would require DNR permits, we had allowed them to continue to operate the existing waste lagoons. They had also proposed an additional lagoon in Randolph County in Jacksonville. But because we continued to see violations, we withdrew that enforcement discretion letter, and we just executed a administrative order on consent with them, which requires them to pump out the existing basins, and so that is kind of where we are with that process. There are also a number of pieces of legislation that are winding their way through the process that deal with this particular circumstance in this particular entity. So that is where we are right now. They could and have applied for permits for us to continue to operate those, but we have also had litigation related to this that enjoins us from moving forward with those permit applications. So that is where we are.
Senator Bean.
So when they pump out those lagoons, where are they going with that material?
They will have to either take it to a wastewater treatment plant is primarily where it will be going,
Okay.
or they have also indicated some intent to potentially look at other destinations outside of the state of Missouri.
Okay. That would, appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Kara.
Okay, our next new decision item is on page 167, our air program anhydrous ammonia. The recommended budget includes $309,111 in general revenue funds to implement the risk management program for agricultural facilities that use, store, or sell anhydrous ammonia. EPA currently runs this program, but the department intends to request delegation from EPA to run this program after the passage of House Bill 3 from the 2022 first extraordinary session of the Missouri Legislature. The department would use these one-time funds to develop the regulations necessary to implement the program, establish the fee and reporting database, and request delegation from EPA. The next new decision items on page 197 and 203 are related. On page 197 is the general revenue transfer. The recommended budget includes $150,000 transfer from the 3% reserve, after the 3% reserve from the general revenue to the Radioactive Waste Investigation Fund. For the contractual cost of radioactive waste investigations, the department will oversee throughout the state. Page 203 is the Radioactive Waste Investigation Operations new decision item. The recommended budget includes $71,131 in general revenue and other funds for operating costs, personal service, and E&E to allow the department to oversee and perform radioactive waste investigations throughout the state. On page 227 is a Superfund new decision item. Recommended to the Superfund Obligations Core General Transfer from page 221. The recommended budget includes a core general revenue transfer of $660,406 to the Hazardous Waste Fund and a new decision item on page 227 for an additional $958,000 for a total of $1.6 million to address two things. First is the balance of the state's 10% cost share obligations for EPA remedial action expenditures at 4 Superfund sites. Second is for operation and maintenance costs associated with 10 cleanup sites. The details are included on page 222 and 228 of the budget book. State statute requires that the department request this funding from general revenue. This concludes my presentation of the new decision items for the Division of Environmental Quality. I will turn it back to Director Button.
I will now introduce Carrie Bridges, who will present the new decision items for the Missouri Geological Survey.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Carrie Bridges, and I'm Director of the Missouri Geological Survey. Our budget begins in Book 2. We have 6 recommended new decision items for your consideration, and the first new decision item is found on page 421, is the critical minerals for a secure future request. The request is for approximately $520,000 and 1 FTE in general revenue. This new decision item will support ongoing and new collaborations with state, federal, university, and private partners to catalyze critical minerals interest in the Midwest and support a cradle-to-grave approach to develop these minerals. The second new decision item is found on page 433, is the Revive Economic Growth and Reclaim Orphaned Wells, or REGROW, request for approximately $24.9 million in federal funds. This item will provide authority to expend federal funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law and implement a sustained effort to plug abandoned oil and gas wells in Missouri. The next item is found on page 445 for the Missouri River Flood Risk and Resiliency Studies request. This request is for approximately $5.1 million in general revenue. This new decision item continues to fund the cooperative work between Missouri and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to provide strategies and design solutions to create better systemic flood protection and resiliency for the Missouri River. The next recommended new decision item is found on page 473, is the request for the Soil and Water Conservation District grants increase for $1 million from other funds. This item will increase pass-through authority and allow the department to provide funding to the districts that would further help recruit and retain soil and water district staff, which are not state employees, increase cost share provided to agricultural landowners, and maintain valuable partnerships that benefit the state environmentally and economically. The next new decision item is found on page 481, is the request for the soil and water conservation nutrient loss reduction for $600,000 from federal funds. This item will provide appropriation authority for grant funding from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the Gulf Hypoxia program that is available to the 12 states in the Mississippi River Basin to invest in strategies to reduce nutrient runoff and improve water quality to ultimately reduce the hypoxia zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Our final recommended new decision item is found on page 489, is the request for the Soil and Water Conservation Watershed Coordination for approximately $150,000 from other funds. This item will provide operating appropriation authority and a vehicle to implement a focused watershed approach for soil and water conservation practices, particularly those that are more challenging, like bank stabilization on private lands, with an emphasis on improving water quality and reducing soil erosion. And this concludes my testimony, and I'll turn it back to Director Bunton.
Now I will introduce Emily Wilbur, who will present the new decision item for the Division of Energy.
Good morning, Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Emily Wilbur, and I am the Director of the Division of Energy. The Division of Energy's one new decision item can be found on page 541. The division is requesting approximately $1.4 million of additional appropriation authority to utilize Federal Inflation Reduction Act funds to establish a contractor training grant program. This program will pass through funding to existing eligible training providers in the state of Missouri to increase the number of trained, certified, and skilled workers needed to meet the demand of Missouri's energy efficiency workforce. This concludes my testimony for the Division of Energy. I will now turn it over to Director Bunton to introduce the next speaker.
So I will now introduce David Kelly, who will present the new decision items for Missouri State Parks.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm David Kelly, Director of Missouri State Parks. We have two new decision items in state parks that I would like to cover today. Our new decision items begin on page 597. This new decision item is included in the governor's recommendation requesting $637,263 in additional authority to offset increased fuel prices and utility rates, as well as account for anticipated utility cost of revenue bond camping and lodging projects currently being constructed. On page 621 is a new decision item included in the governor's recommendation requesting $475,460 in
Hey,
additional.
David, can I stop you real quick?
Sure.
On 603, the governor didn't recommend, I think you guys requested $500,000. The governor recommended nothing on this. State Parks Ranger staffing.
Correct.
Can you tell me why you requested it? And
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to say why he zeroed it out. But
Yeah.
He
So,
might have just got there before me.
Yeah, so some additional, we have additional parks opening, coming online, and record attendance since 2021, and so we've requested additional rangers. We have 47 rangers statewide, 93 state parks and historic sites. And so just to cut down on travel time, covering multiple parks, and we've got some new parks coming online. Okay? Thank you.
Senator Essling.
Just a second. I know that we do have some new parks coming online.
Uh-huh.
How many new parks? I think we have 3 or 4.
All right, Bryant Creek, which you were there,
Yep.
we opened up the first phase of that. Shepherd of the Hill State Park near Branson.
that's 2.
You guys approved kind of the first phase of development. That's going on right now. And then we're going through the planning process for 11 Point State Park
Yeah.
right now.
Right. I knew most of that was down in my area.
Uh-huh.
And I do appreciate having people there and staffing, because it's very important for those new parks to get off the ground, and be doing well and not be vacant. So
Thank you. Okay. On page 621 is a new decision item included in the governor's recommendation requesting $475,460 in additional authority for use of St. Joe State Park. Missouri State Parks is required to undertake extensive monitoring and maintenance of the trail network and erosion control measures to prevent exposure of lead in recreation areas, including stormwater control structures. And this concludes the presentation of the state park budget NDIs.
All right. I did want to mention, while it's not a new.
Hang on, Director.
Yes.
Senator Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. You can do this either now or offline. Could you give me an update on the bridges at Bennett Springs, please?
Yes, ma'am. I actually just got an update on that. The designer is on board, and they actually should be doing surveys this week to start working on the design for that Bramwell Bridge.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What about the other one? Or do you talk, we've got the one existing one and we've got the new one.
The existing one's staying in place and will be a pedestrian fishing bridge.
Okay,
And
are
then the
you-
new one will be a vehicular bridge.
Got it. But, so you're calling the old one the Bramwell Bridge or the new one?
We don't really have a name for the new one yet. It's
Okay.
Bramwell Road. So
Got it.
Maybe we can visit on that. So.
Thank you.
So I did want to mention, and Senator Bernsketter's well familiar with this, but because it's gotten some attention because we have an upcoming public meeting on March 14th, I wanted to mention that the department has used existing appropriations and executed a purchase and sale agreement to acquire approximately 8.43 acres of improved real estate on Capitol Avenue in Jeff City. The property includes the International Shoe Main Street Factory, an 87,000 square foot, 5-story brick building listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It's situated just southwest of the Lewis and Clark State Office Building and directly east of the new One Health Lab. Department intends to redevelop this building into state office space for approximately 400 team members that are currently located in lease space, for which we pay approximately $822,000 a year. And so the funding source is a combination of our State Historic Preservation Revolving Fund and State Parks sales tax funds. And there is a public meeting at DNR's headquarters on Thursday, March 14th on that topic. With that, I will introduce Darcy Bybee, who will present the agency-wide items.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Darcy Bybee, and I serve as the Director for the Division of Administrative Support. The agency-wide section spans the entire department and is not specific to a particular division. There are two new decision items within this section for your consideration. If you'll please turn to page 661, you'll find the first agency-wide new decision item for the FY25 Governor Recommended Pay Plan, which totals approximately $3 million. On page 689 is the second and final new decision item for the FTE realignment, which Director Bunton spoke about in the overall department operations section. This concludes the agency-wide section of the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Does not appear so. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes the department's budget presentation. We appreciate your time and the opportunity
I
to
appreciate your
present.
time. Any questions for the Department of Natural Resources before we let them off the hook for the day? Does not appear so. Director, thanks for being here. Appreciate what your
Thank
team
you.
does.
Would now turn it over to Joe Boland, who will present the budget for EIERA.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As Director Bunton said, my name is Joe Boland, and I serve as the Director of the Environmental Improvement and Energy Resources Authority. The authority was established by the General Assembly in 1972 as an environmental finance and technical assistance entity that is administratively assigned to the Department of Natural Resources. Our main mission is to provide financing solutions for environmental and energy-related projects. We have two new decision items recommended by the governor this year, the first of which can be found on page 785. We are requesting $41 million in federal appropriation in the first year to deploy financial assistance through EPA's Solar for All program. The authority has applied for $250 million through this competitive program that could provide forgivable and low-interest loans for energy efficiency building upgrades, solar equipment, and workforce development training. The application was the result of the efforts of a coalition of partners that we coordinated with across the state And that coalition included the City of Springfield, City of St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Joplin, multiple counties, and many local organizations throughout the state. In addition to the Solar for All program, the authority has been identified as a potential subawardee for $100 million through EPA's National Clean Investment Fund competition. Our second NDI to support this effort can be found on page 791, where we are requesting $47 million in federal appropriation to fund a broader array of energy-related projects, from energy efficiency building upgrades to vehicle fleet conversion, grid resiliency, battery storage, and many other air pollution reducing projects. Since these competitive programs are still in process, the actual outcome is not yet certain, and awards could be significantly different than the application amounts. And finally, the authority pays all operating expenses, including retirement and healthcare contributions, from its own funds, and we have zero general revenue dollars in this budget. And that concludes my presentation.
Joe, can I just ask one question here? On the 47 million, do you have any idea what the framework looks like on how those grants would be awarded? What kind of prioritization for these energy improvements there are? I mean, tell me a little bit more about it.
The eligibilities are pretty broad right now.
That's what I figured.
So we would receive the $100 million, and for the NCIF, for that $47 million program, we're looking to make that basically a revolving loan fund. So it would be a low-interest type program where we would revolve that.
What are we talking? Are we talking residential, commercial, municipalities? Tell me what.
I think we'd like to
how do we
focus.
prioritize that?
We'd probably have to focus more, or prioritize municipalities first, because we know those credits better,
Okay.
since we help administer the state revolving fund. So that's kind of a priority area, but also maybe on the commercial side. But we're not really looking towards residential on that NCIF program. The Solar for All program looks more for, residential rooftop solar. So I think that need would be satisfied there. So.
Yeah. So isn't the funding from the feds, the requirement is municipalities, cities, and non-for-profits?
Those are the eligible recipients of the actual
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
Right.
anything has to flow through basically that stream. Where you're talking
Correct.
about municipalities, cities, non-for-profits, and I forgot it's another one. But they have to flow through, even if even if residential was going to be impacted by it, it would have to come through the cities for those communities. Am I correct?
Not necessarily. I think it depends on, there are certain coalition applications that involve some of the larger cities to a couple of these programs. So we applied on the behalf of the state. There are some other applicants that involve multiple cities as a coalition. So in that case, yes, those monies would flow through those host cities to whatever residential need there might be.
Can non-for-profit, like community development organizations that are non-for-profit, can they apply directly or they cannot? Or they will have to apply through the state?
I think if they met certain eligibilities, they could apply directly to EPA.
Okay.
So otherwise, they could certainly come to us after the fact, if we are indeed awarded any federal money. So.
So in their description, it talks about community lenders. So who are the community lenders?
Community lenders could be everything from credit unions to CDFI, Community Development Finance
Only
Institution.
finance group in a community.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I'm in.
And those are, if there was another competition, the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, and that was part of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that was aiming specifically at local lenders,
Okay.
mainly credit unions and CDFIs and local banks. So that's, we did not apply to either to that CCIA competition.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Any other
thank you.
questions from the committee? Does not appear so. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Kelly Ogletree with Petroleum Storage Tank Insurance.
I
Fund.
thought I saw her come in. Thanks, Joe.
So I didn't see you.
You're okay. Everybody forgets our little fund. Till they need us. Till they need us. I'm Kelly Ogletree. I'm the Executive Director of the Petroleum Storage Tank Insurance Fund. I'm here representing the Board of Trustees. We do not have any new decision items this year, but I wanted to be here if you guys have any questions. Our core remains the same as it has for a number of years, but wanted to be here if you need me.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Does not appear so. Appreciate you coming by this morning.
Perfect.
That will complete our hearing for this morning, and good news for this committee. This will be our last hearing of the week. Next week may be a little more heavy lifting than the 35 minutes we spent in here today getting through, I think, 3 departments? So we will see everybody Tuesday morning, 8:30 back here. Thanks.